Hello there everyone, welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. If you're new here, my name is Chelsea, and if you've been here before, welcome back to the garden. We're not going to be spending a lot of time out in the garden today because the skies are so smoky. I don't know if you can tell. Actually, let's turn you around, but you can see how much smoke is out there. And it's been this way for the last, I think, 5 days or so, so we have not been spending a lot of time outside, which means the garden has been pretty neglected, and there are some things that need to be picked regardless of how smoky the skies are. So we are going to get as much work as we can get done in the shortest amount of time. Fortunately, most of the picking that I have to do today is actually in the high tunnel, which is somewhat protected from the smoke. So we're going to head back down there, get what's picked, what we need to pick there. Then we'll take a quick wander through the garden and see if there's anything that can't wait. It does look like the weather is going to be shifting and the skies are going to be clearing in the next couple of days, fingers crossed. So we'll wait to do some of the larger harvests that I have to do in the garden, but I'll show you what we have going on because it has gotten a little wild with this crazy heat we've had over the last couple of weeks, the squash in particular. The air quality in the high tunnel is so much better than outside. I can breathe, which is nice. And I think it's even better than in the house. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time out here. I'll give you an update on some of the things that we've been following along with over the last couple weeks. I learned a lot from you guys in the comment section when I harvested some watermelon the other day about what I need to wait for here. So what I had been told is that I need to wait for this little curly Q here that's closest to the watermelon itself to completely dry off and even turn black. So I pulled them off obviously too early. They were probably about 7 days too early. And then also to wait until this starts to dry out a little bit. So we're gonna wait, leave that guy there. We have another big one back here. Let's take a look at that one and see how that's looking. Oh yeah, you can see that this is actually drying out a little bit. Okay. I actually have a few more hiding in behind there. That one's definitely not ready. Let's check our cantaloupe here. Oh, that one's ready for sure. Oh no, oh no, I left it too long. I bet you we can salvage some out of there. Okay, we got another one. That one looks good. No, that one looks like we should definitely leave that one. Okay, that does us for the melons. Let's look at our tomatoes here. By far, without a doubt, my worst tomato year ever. Just the number of tomatoes that are on each plant compared to what I'm used to are just not great. I have a couple of big, beautiful old Germans here that we'll be able to pick because those will ripen within a few days on the counter. There's just not a lot. There's some nice clumps like that, but that is the only clump that is on this entire plant is this one. Now, to be fair, I have taken off some ripened tomatoes down from the bottom of it, but this is probably a third of what I'm used to getting off of each plant. Here's another example. Gorgeous big tomato there. Another one single tomato down there. And just not a lot. My guess is we're probably only going to get maybe 200 to 300 pounds out of the high tunnel compared to the, I think in one picking we had 600 pounds last year, plus all the tomatoes that I picked throughout the summer. So what we're actually here to get today are all of these peppers. I have lots of cayenne peppers, tons of other peppers over here. We have Hungarian hot wax. We have black Hungarians over there. And as you can see, my pepper plants are falling over. We have some gorgeous jalapenos here that we need to pick. And these plants definitely have seen better days. So many, look at that, just beautiful. Similarly to my tomatoes, my peppers didn't do great this year. The hot peppers actually did fantastic, but all of the sweet peppers, not so much. It's not the best year for peppers, but I think we'll probably still get a fair amount. So let's grab our bucket. I have not decided exactly what I'm doing with all of these peppers, but I am definitely going to be making some hot sauce with some of them. The reason that I grew so many cayenne peppers, which we're going to be picking in a second, is because I wanted to make an imitation Frank's hot sauce, which is one of my favorite types of hot sauce. It's actually the only hot sauce that I like because I have a baby tongue. But I think for the sake of just making it easier to harvest in here, we're going to yank out. My little bird that's been living in here has been eating off of this sunflower, but I have more sunflowers for it to eat over back on that end. So we'll pull this one out. Oh, easy to break off this time of year. And haul it out to my big compost pile. My cows and my horses get to be out on the meadow now that our hay is off, and they'll come and eat what they want to off of that, and then the rest will get turned into this pile for next year's compost. Wow, in the camera it looks like such a jungle. To be fair, this side has been completely unmaintained this year, but this side is fairly well pruned, although it doesn't look like it in the camera. But without that sunflower, we can see what we're dealing with a little bit better here. So we're just going to actually rip most of these plants right out, and we'll do kind of a cleaning and harvesting at the same time. Unless there are any plants that have fruits that look like they could potentially, before we get hard frost, they could potentially size up or ripen. The reality is we normally have frost this time of year. So the fact that we don't have anything that looks even remotely close to frost for the next 10 days is pretty awesome. But in all reality, even let's say for fruits like this, it's not going to have time to ripen in that period of time. It might get a little bit of color on it like this, but that's fine. I'll be able to use these for all kinds of things like pickling and frying up in recipes and things like that. And I'm just going to make a pile right outside the door and then haul that out to my compost pile. Can you hear the helicopter out there? It is a water bomber helicopter. They have just been flying around this area non-stop for the last week. We fortunately don't have any fires, and thank you to all of you who have been reaching out to check if we're okay. We're fine. We don't have any fires around us. And with these temperatures dropping and some rain in the forecast, I think it's going to knock back all these fires pretty quickly. I bought a mixed variety of pepper seeds from Moonglow Gardens in Alberta. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to try a whole bunch of different varieties of peppers that she carries without having to buy each individual pack. So this was a really good way to do it. And these were one of the ones that were in there. So these are, what are these called again? Black Hungarian peppers. So they start out like this, they turn dark, and then they eventually turn red. And they are, the more ripe they are, the more hot they are. But I'm going to be using these to make a hotter hot sauce for those of my kids that love, my kids and my husband, who like a little more heat than I do. What was really nice about this one, as far as for a northern garden, is it was the first to produce fruit, certainly the first to ripen fruit of all of the peppers that I grew this year. And it was actually you guys that helped me identify this one. These ones were called Choco, something like that. A little sweet bell pepper. Great flavor on these little bell peppers. They won't be something that I'll grow again, but for a patio, these would be great because they're a small, fairly compact plant with quite a bit of fruit on them. So they're a nice one for a patio, I would think. Look at all the beautiful fruit on that one. So this one is a Hungarian hot wax pepper, and I like these ones for making cowboy candy, and I usually will mix them half and half with jalapenos because I like the flavor of hot peppers. I just don't like the heat. Another one of these cuties. Look at all those peppers on there. This one, wow, that's a serious root system on that one. Look at this plant. Wow, look at all those peppers on there. This one, I don't know what this one is called. This was one that I haven't been able to determine yet, but now that I know what it looks like when it's ripe, I'll be able to go onto Moonglow's website and identify it. But this is one of my new favorite peppers. It doesn't have hardly any heat, just a little tiny bit. Barely any at all. For anyone who likes heat, they would say this is a sweet pepper. But for me, I can taste a little bit of heat on it. And, but the flavor is just so, so good. I just cannot get over the amount of peppers that are on here. Definitely one I want to figure out what it is, because I want to grow this one again for sure. Oh, it's so good. These ones are a golden cayenne. A sweet banana pepper. Look at how laden that jalapeno is, and they just look beautiful. This is one of the sweet banana peppers I started from seed. It looks lovely. Mixing these with the Hungarian hot wax also makes a really nice pickled, sweet pickled pickle. I'll try to leave this sunflower here for the birds. Some more Hungarian hot wax. These are some more of the Moonglow Garden mix that I had. I did look up the name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But most of the seeds that Ash grows at Moonglow Gardens are grown for northern climates, and this one was a fantastic sweet pepper. It came on early and was super prolific, so I'll be growing that one again too. Oh, I'm so happy. This is another one of those massively endowed sweet ones. Look at it. Wow. I'm just going to count how many peppers I can get off this one. $66 peppers off of that one plant. That's wild. We have another sunflower that's fallen over here. If you ever wondered why your sunflower plants fall over easily, look at the size of the root ball on that giant plant. It's a little tiny thing. I'm thinking I might just call it quits there, because that's quite a lot to have to deal with. See if there's any other hot peppers we should deal with here. Look at this one. It is absolutely as well endowed as that other one was. Wow. Okay, this is another one that I don't know what it is. What do you think? This one looks like a hot one, doesn't it? Let's try a little tiny taste. Not that hot. Holy moly. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, just give me a second. Well, that cleared out my sinuses. So the, oh my goodness, I still can't even talk. See what I mean? A total baby. The first 2 little bites of that tasted sweet. So I got overconfident and took a big bite. So most of the heat, my brain is not working and my eyes are running, but I don't want to touch them because I was just touching this pepper of a pepper are on the little, like, my brain is drawing a blank because it is on fire. The little, like, veiny things, the things that hold the seeds. Oh my gosh. Inside of a pepper. And once I got to there, that was like the hottest thing I have ever eaten in my entire life. So we're going to make a very, very, very hot sauce out of these peppers. Does anyone know what these are just by looking at them? I'll be able to tell when because they're very distinctive. Here, let me show you close up. So that's what they look like close up. And anyway, we'll be able to make an extremely hot sauce with these. Extremely hot peppers. Maybe they're not that hot. I'll have to get some of the people in my house that really like super hot to try them and tell me if they're a really hot pepper, because that was truly the hottest thing I've ever tried in my life. Very prolific though. If you like super, super hot peppers, this is a good one. I think that's probably enough of those, but if these aren't as hot as I think they are, I'll just leave the plant here and I'll come pull the rest of those off. But if they're as hot as I think they are, then what I have here, that I think will do us for kitchen work today. So we'll bring this up and get this all processed in the different ways that I'm going to deal with them. My mouth is still on fire. My lips are burning. Okay, I'll stop talking about it now. But on the way up, I will give you a quick tour of what's happening in the garden right now and what we've done to do some prep for fall. As you can see here, we have the brassicas pulled out of the garden. So we had the broccoli and cauliflower growing in here. This was the bed that I used the sheep's wool. And you can see there's still some remnants of it left. Friends, I personally would never use sheep's wool as a mulch in my garden again. I do have some in my high tunnel and it's been working great in there because I don't have a lot of weed pressure in there and it's been easy to pull out the few weeds. And it worked really well for retaining moisture and just keeping the need to water as much in the high tunnel down. However, taking it out of this bed was a legit nightmare. It had almost made its way, like it had roots, into the soil. So it was a pain to take out. It was absolutely infested with weeds and quackgrass and just things that had been underneath it that you couldn't even see from the surface of it. Yeah, and then of course there's just kind of the mess of all the little bits of wool here that I need to rake up and clean up. So not something that I would recommend using in your garden. I promised I would give you an update on my thoughts. When I first put it in, I loved the way it looked. I loved the way it smelled. It kept the weeds down for probably about 4 weeks, although I did find out that they were growing in underneath all of that wool. You just couldn't see them from the top. And the plants themselves did spectacularly well with it because it kept the soil nice and cool. Brassicas in particular like to have their roots nice and cool. Their tops can get hot, but if the roots start getting hot and the ground gets hot, then it can cause them to bolt. So it did help with that. I don't think I've ever had such gorgeous broccoli as I have had growing in that. However, just the pain of removing it and now dealing with it, like what do you do with that much weed infested wool? I have a pile in beside where my compost pile is there, and I'm not sure, we might just dig a hole and bury it. I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for that. But in the high tunnel, like I said, it worked pretty well. But I don't know if you can see you that pumpkin back there? Look at this. Look at that gorgeous pumpkin. There is another one over there I can see. There's another one poking up over there. This was a new variety. I don't want to actually walk in through there to look at the tag, but when we do the big squash harvest, I will let you know what variety of pumpkin that is. I don't generally go poking around my squash patches too much before harvest season, before the vines start to die back, because I just love the surprise of seeing what's in underneath. But I can tell you, based on what I can see from just around the edges of the beds, we are going to have a bumper crop of squash and pumpkins this year. I have to admit to being just a little bit nervous about the quantity of squash that we're going to get out of these patches, particularly pumpkins. I think I grossly overplanted pumpkins, and I personally need so many. So I'm definitely going to be giving lots of pumpkins and squash away this fall. Does anyone have any guesses on the amount of squash? So to be fair, I'll have to show you what we're dealing with. So this is one of the squash patches here that goes back right back over there. And then we have over here on our way over to the squash. I'll show you that I did knock down all of my red wing onions. So these are red onions. I shared in my big onion harvest video that I did a couple weeks ago where we harvested all of my white onions, a bunch of information about growing onions. So I won't get into that in today's video, but I did want to show you how beautiful these onions are looking. Look at that beauty. The onions this year were just other level fantastic. I harvested around 1,200 white onions and they were all looking fantastic size-wise, but these are the best red onions I have ever grown. Red wing is a fabulous storage onion. It's the only red onion that I grow, and I'm just thrilled with them. I have about 500 of them, I think, planted in this row, if I remember correctly when I planted them. But they're looking fantastic. So I'm going to leave them in the ground probably for another couple of days, and then we'll come and get these all pulled out. I really need to get to processing all the white onions that are in my curing. This is where I cure my onions, back over there. And it's still pretty full of white onions. I've been slowly getting through them with my freeze dryer, but the freeze dryer does take a long time to run a cycle through. So it's been taking me quite a while, but I need space now to cure all these. When we do the harvest on these ones, I'll show you what my plan is for all my red onions. So not only did I overplant my squash, but I had volunteers come up in my garden. We didn't have frost throughout almost the entire month of May, which is really unusual for us. So a lot of the volunteer squash that came up didn't get killed off by frost like they usually do. This is one of them, and we have two. There's one pumpkin down there and then one pumpkin over here. And what's kind of interesting about this is these are on the same plant and they look like different pumpkins. So there's that one. And then this guy over here, which looks like an entirely different type of pumpkin. This is a hybrid from a cross-pollination between two different varieties of pumpkins that I grew last year. I don't know which ones though, because I grew quite a few different ones, but I have never had two different types of pumpkins grow on the same plant before, even a hybridized one. So this would be a first for me. I'm trying to make it to the squash. I really am, but I just need to show you this. If you've been here over the last 8 years, I've been sharing content here for 8 years, if you can believe it, you will know that each year I have a different flower that just captures my heart. And this year is definitely the Dahlia. But so many people have been sending me links for these big dinner plate dahlias and all the different types of dahlias that you can grow. And I have a feeling that this may be the flower for me. I may have found my perfect match in a flower because they're just so exquisite. And look at how big these are. Now these are in a 2-foot raised bed. So they do have the extra 2 feet of height, but even still, they are, I am 5, how tall am I? I'm almost 5'9", just under 5'9". So these are just growing like gangbusters, and they're so exquisitely beautiful, and they actually hold up when I've talked about this before, but I don't usually cut flowers out of my garden and bring them inside, but I have been with these because I have just been enjoying having them in the house and being able to enjoy their exquisite beauty all the time. So I'm definitely going to be planting way more of these next year. This is the patch that makes me feel a little bit nervous about the quantity of squash that I have, because just by standing here, I don't know if you can see, but there's yellow and oranges all poking up here, and the size of the pumpkins this year that I can see. I have a Cinderella pumpkin. I'll take you in there to see that one. That is right here. And this is huge for a Cinderella pumpkin. Look at that beauty. And then I have peanut pumpkins over here. So this one is my favorite pie pumpkin. It is an absolutely scrumptious pumpkin for making pies. And it's very beautiful too. And look at that, the stem is starting to turn brown. I think I'm going to be able to ripen or cure all of my squash on the vine this year, which is so exciting because this would be a lot of squash to cure on my deck. But I cannot wait to do this harvest, friends. It's going to be so much fun. I need to get in out of the smoke now, so we're going to head back up to the house and make ourselves some hot sauce. All right, we're ready to make some hot sauce, but I wanted to show you, you probably already noticed if you've been here before, but I did make some cafe curtains out of the Little Mountain Ranch tea towels that are going to be available on the 18th of September. And they sold out extremely quickly last time. So I have created a wait list, and the people that are on the wait list will be notified first and have an early shot at being able to get the tea towels, and then it'll go out to my mailing list, and then it will go out to the general public. So I do recommend that if you do want one, that you get yourself on that wait list so that you don't miss out. But I wanted to show you what I did here. So I just got a cheap curtain rod, and then I got these clips, and I just ordered these off of Amazon. So they're just a little clip like this, and then they just clip on. So all I did to adjust the height rather than cutting the tea towel is I just folded it over on the top. So it just looks like a hem. And I think it turned out really cute. So I have them all both. I love the way that this looks. And the only thing that I need to do is get a different topper for the top. I haven't decided what color I'm going to do there yet. These were the original ones that I had on before, but I'm really happy with this. And what's really helpful is sometimes when I'm filming, because I film facing the window, the light washes the footage out, and then I have to do a bunch of adjusting and editing and stuff. So now I'm able to close these and block out the light. So that makes me happy. Okay, let's make ourselves some hot sauce. I just want you to come try this pepper and see what you think. Okay, I'm warning you, this is the hottest pepper I have ever tried in my entire life. So just take a tiny, I tried off the end and it was fine, and then I took, no, don't do that.
Spicy.
You got some heat coming now?
No.
It's not hot?
No. It's spicy, but it's not hot.
What?
Like the cayenne Reaper one, that one was hot.
So, but it does taste spicy?
Yes.
So do you want me to make hot sauce for you with it?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so I am an actual baby. Let's get down to try. Hey, hon, can you come try this for a sec? Okay, I just want you to come try a little tiny bit of this pepper. So I thought it was the hottest thing I'd ever had. He just took a bite and his face didn't even go red, and he said it wasn't even that hot. But I want you to try, because he has a mouth like so strong, and I'm a baby mouth, and you're kind of an in between the two of us.
Got some spice to it.
But not, is it?
Pretty warm.
It's pretty warm? Okay, good. I'm not a total baby then. Okay, so we will make a hot sauce out of this, but Dan says it's hot. So is it as hot as that one that you tried last year that you said was the hottest pepper?
It's not as hot as that one.
It's not as hot as that one? Okay. So like I said, I truly, genuinely have a baby mouth. So we will make a hot sauce out of this though. Okay, on top of the peppers, which I actually need to wash because they got quite dirty out there. I wasn't being very careful with harvesting them. But I'm also gonna need some garlic and some onions for these recipes. So I'll get these washed up and I'll be back with you shortly. I've got my garlic peeled over here, and I'm just going to give it a rough chop here. I am going to be blending this up so I don't have to get too carried away, but the flavor will diffuse through during the fermentation process a little bit better if we have it chopped up a bit. And I was thinking of adding some onion, but I have since decided not to do that. I'm just going to use some wide mouth mason jars for fermenting this, and I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons or so, give or take, of garlic into each one of our jars. We'll just evenly distribute this. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar to each one of these. Going to add, I don't know, 2 teaspoons-ish or so. And then this has 2 benefits. One is it will sweeten the hot sauce a little bit, but also it will help the fermentation process get going and all that bacteria to have something to eat. I've only made hot sauce a few times, so I am not in any way an expert, but one thing that I will say is to make sure that you take the green tops. This might seem obvious, but to take the green tops off, because it'll give it a leafy sort of flavor, a bit of a bitter flavor to your hot sauce if you don't do that. So I'm just going to cut the tops off of all of these and then cram them in a jar. If you are going to be chopping up peppers and you're going to be getting the juice all over your fingers, so say for cowboy candy where you're slicing them all, then I do recommend doing or wearing gloves, because it will help protect your hands, especially if you have any little cuts on them or anything. But I did it, I've done this more than once, but where I've done jalapenos and then I end up with the skin peeling off the ends of my fingers. Plus, also be very careful that you don't touch your face when you're chopping these. I'm just cutting the ends off, so I'm not worried about wearing gloves. And I'm also using the red and yellow ones first, and then I'll top it off the rest of the way, excuse me, with the green ones. You can make hot sauce without fermenting too, but fermenting does give a really nice flavor to your hot sauce. Okay, let's give these a little push down here. Okay, that is perfect. So we're going to set that aside here. And now we will make our banana pepper and Hungarian hot wax. Whoops. These ones I'm going to cut into smaller pieces. I am planning on using some of these less hot peppers to make pepper jelly. I am almost out of my pepper jelly from last year. I have one left, and that is not enough. I eat a lot during the winter time. I don't know why I do this during the winter time, but I eat a lot of cheese and crackers and pepper jelly. Little evening snack. Okay, that one's done. I feel like we'll do that one, that recipe there, with some of these too, but I am going to do just a straight up fermented hot sauce with these ones, and I really should wear gloves for these, shouldn't I? Yeah, I should. Okay, all gloved up. I'll cut these up. So these are apparently on the website between 50 and 100,000 on the Scoville scale. So that seems hot to me. But maybe we'll just stick to the 3 and do some canning. I wasn't planning on doing some canning, but I have so many peppers left there, and peppers are one of those things that unless they're kept in the fridge, they do tend to go soft on the counter really quickly, and I don't have enough room in my fridge to put them. So I want to get something done with them right away. So we'll just add this extra garlic into these ones here. And we will make a little brine to cover those with. Okay, so we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of salt to a quart jar and top it off with some warm water. Just dissolve our salt. You can add the salt right into your jars and top them with water too if you like. So we want to make sure that when we're fermenting that we have our veggies covered. Oh, that's hot, just even breathing in the fumes from that. Oh gosh. Look at how beautiful that looks. I'm going to use some mason top pickle pipes, and I wanted to thank whoever sent me these ones. I'm not sure what the brand is on these ones. It doesn't actually say, but it has a little flower on it there. When I was doing all of my fermenting, I think I did 15 jars or something like that of sauerkraut. I didn't have enough of these, and I didn't mention it, but somebody noticed and actually sent me some more. So thank you so much, whoever that was. Your name was on the, excuse me, on the parcel. But I really, really appreciated that. That was very thoughtful. So you want some kind of weight to hold your veggies down. I have these little glass pucks. They're called pickle pucks downstairs that I have to go grab. But I'm just gonna pop those on the top right now and just set those aside. Ideally, you want to put your ferments in a dark place, but honestly, I just do it on my kitchen counter and always have, and have never had an issue with it. The reason that I like keeping them on my kitchen counter is it reminds me to check them. I can see whether there's any mold or anything happening. I find if they're down in my pantry, I'm just less likely to pay attention to them. So I like to put mine on the counter. Now, what do we want to do first, friends? I'm actually out of pint jars at the moment, so I'm going to go scour around because I feel like I can find some somewhere. Some corner of my shed there has got to be some pint jars because I do want to use pint jars for these. But I have decided I'm going to use my onion for some of the pickled peppers that we're going to make. And I'm leaning towards potentially doing my jelly too, since I have all the peppers here. Might as well, right? Okay, so now that I'm going to make the red pepper jelly, I actually had to go watch my video, my own video, where I made red pepper jelly last year or the year before, because I didn't want to go rifle through all my stuff and find my written down recipe. So we are going to need 7 red peppers. I have a variety of different colored peppers here. I don't obviously have a ton of red peppers. And I'm also going to throw in a couple of the Hungarian hot wax peppers in here too, because I do want a little bit of heat in this jelly. Traditionally, this recipe doesn't actually have any heat in it, but I like a little bit of heat in it. So I am going to add a few of those. Now, the labor intensive part of this whole process is that we actually have to de-seed all of these peppers. But because these aren't hot peppers, I don't have to worry about putting on gloves. And we're actually going to be blending these up in the food processor. This recipe makes around 14 half pints of jelly. And don't have a heart attack when you see the amount of sugar in this recipe, because it is a lot of sugar. It's 10 cups of sugar for this recipe. It is just a condiment, so it's not a ton that you're eating at once. I am going to use Pomona's pectin today. So I've talked about this before, but Pomona's pectin does have a different type of gel than regular pectin does. And I don't mind it because I've been using it forever. But I have noticed a difference if I do try someone else's jelly that's with the regular pectin. I would say it's a more textured gel, I guess I would say. But you can play around with the amount of pectin that you use for the recipe with Pomona's pectin. Generally, you don't want to mess around with the quantities of pectin in your regular recipes when you're just using regular pectin, but with Pomona's you can. I just generally follow the recipe. For this recipe, we're going to be using 4 teaspoons of pectin and 4 teaspoons of the calcium water, but I'll show you that process if you haven't seen it before when we get to that point. Now I'm not worrying too much about getting every single seed out of here. I just want any of the big chunks of seed out of these. We'll use some of these beautiful lilac peppers. Just gorgeous. I was just saying to Dan that I feel like the best gardener in the whole world when I look at a counter full of gorgeous multicolored peppers. They're just so shiny and stunning. So yeah, always makes me feel like a good gardener, even though the harvest wasn't fantastic this year. Even just the few that I got are beautiful. Ooh, that's got some heat. I think I might just add that one and then I'll taste it and I'll add some more if I need to. I'm gonna add the little cocoa bell peppers. I think the thing that makes this particular recipe taste as good as it does is the chili powder that we're going to be adding to it. Whew, my tongue, just the little tiny spot I touched on my tongue is burning. I love the flavor of hot food. I just wish that my tongue could handle it, because I would be someone who ate hot stuff all the time because the flavor is so good. These are the cutest little peppers, aren't they? Chop these up. Just going to put a few in there at a time. It's going to be kind of pretty. 2 cups of vinegar. 2 teaspoons of salt. 2/3 a cup of lemon juice. And 3 teaspoons of chili powder. And over on the stove to start cooking. And then we're going to mix up our, wow, huge mess. Oh my gosh, this is what happens when I don't have things planned really well first. I share a lot of canning and bulk cooking content here on my channel, and I usually have everything well planned and organized before. But when I am flying by the seat of my pants, as I am today, this is what happens. Okay, I didn't add quite the 10 cups of sugar, about 8.5 or so, because with this Pomona's pectin, you need to mix a little bit of the pectin in with the sugar to add it in there so you don't get chunks. So we're gonna do 4 cups of our pectin. Oh, sorry, not 4 cups, 4 teaspoons. And then we'll top this with sugar, mix it in and add it. And then we are going to make some calcium water, 1/2 teaspoon of calcium into 1/2 cup of water. Okay, so we're gonna get this to come up to a boil, and then we will add all of our pectin, our calcium water, all that good stuff. You know, I was just thinking about not doing any more of these peppers because I only have 1/2 pint jars. I only found 3 pint jars in scouring everywhere to see if I could find any. But I have lots of the 1/2 pint jars left, and I usually just reserve those for jelly. But I was thinking about how many times I have gone into my fridge and there is a 1/2 jar of, say, cowboy candy shoved in the back of the fridge because somebody, excuse me, opened it up, took what they wanted out, and then it was left in the fridge and then wasn't used again for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I think it might be worthwhile to do some smaller jars and also for giving away as well. So I think what I'm gonna do is do the cowboy candy with the black Hungarian and the jalapeno peppers. So we'll get another pot going and get those cooking down. It's pretty easy, just vinegar, sugar, quite a lot of sugar, similar to this. Some turmeric, what else do I usually put in there? Celery seed, mustard seed, yeah, just whatever I have around. So we'll get this pot going here, and I am definitely going to put on gloves for those. And then with those sweet peppers, the little green ones, I'm going to save some for the next couple of days just to have fried with butter and salt and pepper because they're delicious that way. But I'm also going to pickle some, and I'm just going to pickle it with a half white vinegar, half water pickling brine. I'll add a little bit of salt, some turmeric, some celery seed, basically the same that I'm going to be adding to the jalapenos that we're going to be doing, except I'm not going to add a bunch of sugar. So there'll just be a straight up pickled pepper for sandwiches and whatnot. And then I'll also add the onions into those ones. And then whatever peppers I have left, I'll probably just chop up and throw in the freezer. I will say that when you first add the peppers for the jelly, you're going to think you have way too many peppers in there, but they shrink a lot. So don't worry about that. It will work out fine. These will make nice gifts too because they're going to be multicolored. So we have the red and the purple. I wonder if the purple is going to retain its color. Normally things that are purple, when you cook them down, they turn green in my experience. So my guess is these are probably, oh yeah, they won't retain their color. You can see they're green on the inside. So with cowboy candy, if you want to do it in rings like this, which is really great for sandwiches and pizza, that's how most people do it. But I have diced them up before so that they're smaller, which I find is really nice for like cheese and crackers rather than the larger pieces. But you can do it whatever way works for you. Okay, let's check on our jelly here. Smells good, so we're going to add 4 teaspoons of our calcium water to this. Turn our heat down a bit, and I like using a whisk when I'm adding my pectin. Okay, we'll let that boil for a minute. Okay, we're going to add a couple teaspoons of celery seed. I don't know, teaspoon, and a little bit of turmeric, sugar, equal to the amount of peppers we have, a little bit of salt, and vinegar. Over onto the stove. Okay, I'm going to use the same pot as I did my jelly in. So I'm just going to snap off the tops here. Now, I do find for pickled peppers like these, you don't have to get as carried away with cutting the tops off because the vinegar counteracts any kind of green flavor. that the stem might impart. Okay, now we're going to add equal parts vinegar to water. Two teaspoons of salt and a 1/4 cup of sugar. And over to the stove. Okay, so I have just the pickled whole peppers here, and I did throw those onions in. I just sliced them nice and thin like that and threw those in there. So I'm gonna let this cook until these are nice and soft. And then over here we have our jalapenos. Okay, and then we have our jalapenos over here, and I'm going to cook this. Let's turn that down a little bit though. I'm going to cook this until the syrup starts to thicken a little bit. These jalapenos are going to release a lot of liquid, and you can steam that off and then have a nice syrup. So that's what I'm going to do with these. We're going to can these for 10 minutes. We're putting them in the 1/2 pint jars. Same thing for our pickles over here. I added a little bit of garlic powder, actually almost around a tablespoon of garlic powder to this as well. Now we're ready to get them jarred up and into the canner. We have a bunch of preserves for the pantry that I was not planning on doing today, but I'm happy that I did. So these are the pickled peppers, and they taste fantastic. My only regret is I should have taken the seeds out of them. I have done them before without taking the seeds out, but they must have been a different kind of pepper, because the seeds in these ones are really seedy. That's the best way to describe it. They didn't soften with the cooking or canning process at all. So when I do go put these on a sandwich, I'll have to just use my thumb and pull the seeds out. That's unfortunate, because the actual pickles themselves are amazing. I did add a little bit of garlic to these. I added some mustard seed and some celery seed as well. They turned out great. I think these look so pretty. So this is the cowboy candy. I love the little red flecks in there. They turned out really nice. So that these ones I will we'll keep a few of them, but I plan to give most of them away for the holidays. And then we have, I'm going to be very careful moving our jelly. It is gelling up, but you don't want to move jelly around too much until it has set for at least 24 hours. Sometimes it can take up to 3 days for it to really set up. But you'll notice that a lot of the little bits have floated up to the top. So back when I first started making jellies like this with little flecks in them, I would use this trick that you can do once they start to gel up, and that's just to move them slightly to start to disperse those little flecks throughout the jelly. I don't care anymore. These jellies are for us. And so all I do when I open up a jar of a jelly like this is I just use my knife and I stir in all the little chunks, and then they disperse throughout the jelly, and it works just fine. So I save myself that extra step by doing that. These are the hot peppers, the fermenting hot peppers and garlic with a little bit of sugar, and I just think that looks so pretty. So I'm going to be letting these ferment for probably a week or so, I would say. Maybe a little bit longer, we'll see, but I promise to bring you back with me when I am going to make the actual hot sauce, and we'll do that together. All right, friends, that's going to be it for me today, but I wanted to remind you quickly that if you did want to grab one of the Little Mountain Ranch autumn tea towels or cafe curtains, you can grab a link to get onto the wait list down in the pinned comment below or in the show notes. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.